"You're fired, Sarah. Clean out your desk by the end of the day." Those cold words from my husband's mouth hit me like a truck. I stood there, frozen in his office, watching him shuffle papers on his desk as if he hadn't just shattered my world. As if he hadn't just fired his own wife. "My name is Eleanor Chin and I'm 37 years old. 10 years ago, I had nothing but a dream and $50,000 inheritance from my grandmother. I was 27, ambitious, and determined to build something of my own. My grandmother's last words to me were, 'Create something that will outlive you, Ellie.' So I did. I started Vision Tech from my tiny apartment. For 2 years I worked day and night, developing software that helped small businesses manage their inventory more efficiently. I hired my first employee when I couldn't handle the workload alone. By year 3 we had an actual office with 10 employees and growing revenue. That's when I met Robert. He walked into a tech conference where I was presenting Vision Tech's newest software update. Tall, confident, with intelligent eyes and a smile that made my professional demeanor crack just a little. He asked the most insightful questions during my presentation. "Your inventory prediction algorithm is impressive," he said afterward, handing me his business card. "I'd love to discuss potential applications over coffee." Robert Johnson was a business consultant with experience working with tech startups. Our coffee meeting turned into dinner, which turned into more dinners. His knowledge of scaling businesses complemented my technical expertise perfectly. 6 months later, when I needed a new operations manager as Vision Tech expanded, hiring Robert seemed like the obvious choice. "Are you sure?" he asked when I offered him the position. "Mixing business and pleasure can be complicated." I was sure. I trusted him completely. A year later we were married. 2 years after that, Vision Tech had grown to 50 employees with offices in 3 cities. It was actually my idea to keep my ownership of Vision Tech private. Robert thought it was strange at first. "Why would you want to hide that you're the founder?" he asked one night as we discussed the company's upcoming restructuring. "I don't want special treatment," I explained. "I want honest feedback from our team. If everyone knows I'm the owner, they'll treat me differently." There was more to it than that. I'd experienced sexism in the tech industry firsthand. At conferences and meetings, people would often speak to Robert first, assuming he was in charge. Potential clients sometimes questioned my technical expertise until Robert vouched for me. It was exhausting. "Besides," I added, "if I step back from being the public face of the company, I can focus more on product development, which is what I love most." Robert understood. We created a parent company, EC Holdings, my initials, which officially owned Vision Tech. Only our lawyer and accountant knew I was the sole owner of EC Holdings. To everyone else, including our employees, Vision Tech was owned by a private investment group. I took the title of senior developer while Robert became the general manager. For 3 years this arrangement worked perfectly. I could focus on creating new features for our software while Robert handled the daily operations and management of our growing team. Vision Tech thrived and so did our marriage. Until things started to change. The first sign of trouble came when Robert hired James Peterson as our new marketing director without consulting me. "He has an impressive resume," Robert explained when I questioned him. "We need someone with his experience to take us to the next level." James was slick with expensive suits and big promises. He convinced Robert to invest heavily in a new marketing campaign that cost 3 times our usual budget. "Trust me," James said in meetings. "You need to spend money to make money." 6 months later, the expensive campaign had produced minimal results. Our finances were strained and the atmosphere in the office grew tense. Robert started working later, coming home stressed and irritable. "We'll turn this around," he would say, but I could see the worry in his eyes. I tried suggesting solutions, scaling back expenses, refocusing on our core customers, developing new features that our existing clients had requested. "Let me handle the business side," Robert snapped one evening when I brought up my concerns. "You focus on the technical stuff." That stung. It was the first time he'd spoken to me as if I were just an employee rather than his partner, both in business and life. I backed off, thinking he needed space to work through the challenges. That was my first mistake. Over the next year, Vision Tech's financial situation worsened. Robert made more decisions without consulting me. He hired expensive consultants, rebranded our main product against my advice, and even moved us to a lavish new office with rent that made me wince every time I signed the EC Holdings checks. James Peterson, meanwhile, had become Robert's right-hand man. They would have long meetings behind closed doors, emerging with plans that seemed increasingly desperate. "We need to pivot," Robert announced at one company meeting. "Our current approach isn't working." The pivot meant scrapping features that our loyal customers loved in favor of flashier options designed to attract bigger clients. I objected during the meeting, presenting data showing how our existing customers were our most reliable revenue source. "Thank you for your input, Sarah," Robert said coolly, using my work pseudonym. "But the decision has been made." That night at home, I tried again to reason with him. "Robert, I think we're making a mistake. Our core customers." "Do you think this is easy?" he interrupted, his voice rising. "I'm trying to save this company. If you have all the answers, where were they before things got this bad?" I fell silent, hurt by his tone and his refusal to listen. "I'm sorry," he said later, coming to bed after midnight. "I'm just under a lot of pressure. James and I have a plan. It's going to work." I nodded and pretended to be asleep. Something had broken between us and I wasn't sure how to fix it. 6 months later, Vision Tech was in serious trouble. We'd lost nearly 30% of our longtime customers after the product changes. The big clients Robert and James had targeted weren't signing up at the rate they'd projected. For the first time since our second year, we were consistently losing money. The atmosphere at the office was toxic. People whispered in corners and several valuable team members resigned. Robert started looking for someone to blame and somehow his eyes settled on me. It started subtly. In meetings, he would question my technical decisions in front of the team. "Are you sure that's the best approach? It seems inefficient." Or, "That feature was supposed to be done last week. What's the holdup?" At home, we barely talked about work anymore. Actually, we barely talked at all. Robert would come home late, eat the dinner I'd left in the microwave, and fall asleep on the couch watching financial news. I tried to reach him. "Robert, we need to talk about what's happening at Vision Tech." "Not now, Eleanor. I've had a long day." "Always not now. Never the right time." Then came the restructuring announcement. Robert called an all-hands meeting and revealed that due to financial difficulties, the company would need to eliminate several positions. I watched my colleagues' faces fall as they wondered who would be cut. After the meeting, James approached me at my desk. "Sarah, Robert would like to see you in his office." I knew what was coming. I could feel it in my bones. "Close the door, please," Robert said when I entered his office. He didn't look up from his computer screen. I sat across from him, watching my husband of 5 years transform into a stranger before my eyes. Finally, he looked up. "Sarah, I'll get right to the point. As part of our necessary cutbacks, we're eliminating your position." Even though I'd expected it, the words still knocked the wind out of me. Not because I was losing my job. Technically, I couldn't since I owned the company. But because my husband was sitting there, firing me from my own creation while calling me by my work pseudonym. "I see," I managed to say. "Your contributions have been valuable," he continued in a rehearsed way. "But we need to streamline our development team. We're keeping the junior developers who can handle the maintenance of existing features at a lower cost." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Lower cost? I had been taking a minimal salary for years, pouring most of the profits back into the company. "Is there something you want to say?" Robert asked, noticing my expression. I took a deep breath. "Why me specifically?" He hesitated, then leaned forward. "Off the record, your resistance to our new direction has been problematic. The marketing team blames your delayed implementation of features for our failure to attract new enterprise clients. James has made a compelling case that your reluctance to embrace change has held Vision Tech back." My blood boiled, but I kept my voice steady. "So I'm the reason for the company's failure?" "I didn't say that," he backtracked, but his eyes said otherwise. "But we need people who are fully on board with our vision. You've made it clear that you aren't." "Your vision," I corrected quietly. "Not ours. Not anymore." He sighed, sliding a folder across the desk. Here's your severance package. It's generous, given the company's situation. 2 months' salary and extended health benefits. Generous? With my own money? You'll need to turn in your key card and clear out your desk today. James will oversee the transition. And that was it. No acknowledgement of our marriage, of my years of work, of the fact that Vision Tech was my baby long before it was his responsibility. Anything else? I asked, standing up. For a moment I thought I saw regret flicker across his face. I'll be late tonight. Budget meetings. I nodded and walked out, past curious eyes and whispered conversations. James was waiting by my desk with an empty box. Need help packing? He asked with poorly concealed satisfaction. I can manage, I replied coldly. As I placed my personal items in the box, the small cactus Robert had given me on our first anniversary, the framed photo of the original team, my grandmother's lucky pen, I wondered how we had come to this. How the man I loved had become someone who could fire his wife and blame her for his failures. I left without saying goodbye to anyone, the box of memories heavy in my arms. As the elevator doors closed, I made a decision. It was time for Eleanor Chin to reclaim Vision Tech. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't face the emptiness of our house, couldn't pretend that things could ever be normal between Robert and me again. Instead, I checked into a hotel and called the one person I knew I could trust. My lawyer, Grace Wilson. He did what? Grace exclaimed when I told her what had happened. Fired me. From my own company. Does he have any idea that you're actually his boss? No, I said, staring out the hotel window at the city lights. And that's the card I'm going to play. Grace was silent for a moment. Eleanor, are you sure? This will change everything. Your marriage, the company. My marriage is already over, I said, surprised by how certain I felt. He chose the company over me, except it's not even the company I built anymore. It's something else, something broken. We spent the next 3 days planning. As the sole owner of EC Holdings, I had ultimate authority over Vision Tech. I could remove Robert as general manager with a single document. But I wanted to be strategic. I need to understand exactly what went wrong, I told Grace, before I make any moves. Grace helped me get access to all the financial records and executive decisions from the past 2 years. What I found shocked me. Yes, the expensive marketing campaigns had failed, but that wasn't the whole story. There were consulting fees paid to a company called JP Strategies, which a quick search revealed was owned by none other than James Peterson. Robert had approved payments totaling over $300,000 to his friend's company for strategic advice that had led Vision Tech to the brink of collapse. Even worse, I found emails suggesting that Robert and James had a plan to arrange a distress sale of Vision Tech to a larger competitor, a sale that would have included generous positions for both of them in the new organization. They were deliberately running my company into the ground to sell it cheaply. This is more than bad management, Grace said grimly. This borders on fraud. I sat back, feeling strangely calm. Then it's time to act. 1 week after being fired, I walked back into Vision Tech's offices. The receptionist's eyes widened in surprise. Sarah. Miss Chin. We weren't expecting you. Is Robert in? I asked pleasantly. Yes, but he's in a meeting with Mr. Peterson and some visitors from Apex Tech. Apex Tech, one of our biggest competitors. Right on schedule. Perfect. That's exactly who I need to see. Before she could stop me, I walked directly to the conference room and opened the door without knocking. 4 men in suits looked up in surprise. Robert's face drained of color. Sarah, what are you doing here? This is a private meeting. I smiled. Oh, Robert. Mr. Peterson. I turned to the other 2 men. And you must be from Apex Tech. I'm Eleanor Chin, founder and CEO of Vision Tech. The confusion in the room was palpable. One of the Apex executives extended his hand. Eleanor Chin? We were told the company was managed by Robert Johnson. Robert is the general manager, I clarified. Appointed by me through my holding company EC Holdings, which owns Vision Tech outright. Robert stood up abruptly. Eleanor, what are you doing? My job, I replied calmly. I've been away too long, letting others run my company into the ground. I placed a folder on the table. These are financial records showing questionable payments to JP Strategies, owned by James Peterson here, along with emails discussing your plans for a distressed sale of my company. James jumped to his feet. This is outrageous. Robert, control your wife. Ex-wife soon enough, I corrected. And Robert doesn't control me or this company. I do. The Apex executives exchanged uncomfortable glances. Perhaps we should reschedule. No need, I said. There will be no sale of Vision Tech to Apex or anyone else. What there will be is a complete restructuring of management, effective immediately. I handed each of them copies of official documents Grace had prepared. As you can see, as of 9 a.m. this morning, Robert Johnson and James Peterson have been removed from their positions at Vision Tech. Robert finally found his voice. You can't do this. I already have, I said, meeting his eyes. You fired me from my own company, Robert. You blamed me for its failure when you were the one driving it into the ground. Did you really think I would just walk away? The room fell silent. The Apex executives gathered their materials and made hasty excuses to leave. James stormed out, threatening lawsuits. Finally, it was just Robert and me. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. All these years. I did tell you. At the beginning. But somewhere along the way you forgot that Vision Tech was mine before it was yours. You forgot that we were partners. He sank into a chair. What happens now? Now you clean out your desk. Experience what it feels like. The next few months were the hardest of my life. Divorcing the man I had loved while simultaneously saving the company I had built took everything I had. But I wasn't alone. Once the truth came out, many of our original team members returned. Linda, my first employee, took over operations. Marcus, who had quit when Robert changed our product direction, returned to lead development. I always knew there was something special about you, Sarah. Eleanor, Linda said on her first day back. I just didn't realize how special. We returned to our roots, focusing on the reliable inventory software that had built our reputation, while carefully developing new features that our loyal customers actually wanted. I personally called every client we had lost and asked for a chance to win them back. The woman who created Vision Tech is back in charge, I would say. And I promise, we're going back to what made us great. Many came back. Some didn't. But slowly, steadily Vision Tech began to recover. Robert and I finalized our divorce 6 months after the confrontation. He didn't fight for anything. Not the house, not a share of the company, nothing. Perhaps it was guilt, or perhaps he finally understood what he had thrown away. The last time I saw him was at the signing of our divorce papers. I'm sorry, Eleanor, he said as we prepared to part. I got lost somewhere along the way. Yes, I agreed. You did. The company will do well with you back at the helm, he added. You were always the heart of Vision Tech. I see that now. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Despite everything, a part of me still mourned what we had lost. Not just our marriage, but our shared vision, our partnership. As he turned to leave, he paused. By the way, I always hated calling you Sarah at work. Eleanor suited you better. Goodbye, Robert, I said firmly, closing that chapter of my life. Today Vision Tech is thriving again. We've recovered most of our lost ground and are growing sustainably. I'm back where I belong, leading my company openly, proudly using my real name. Sometimes I think about how differently things might have turned out if I had never created the EC Holdings arrangement, if I had been open about my ownership from the beginning. Would Robert have still lost his way? Would he have made the same decisions if he had to face me as the owner, not just his wife and employee? I'll never know. But I do know that I've learned valuable lessons about transparency, trust, and standing up for what's mine. My grandmother would be proud. I've created something that will outlive me. Not just a successful company, but a story of resilience and reclamation. That day when Robert uttered those cold words, "You're fired, Sarah," was the most painful moment of my life. But it was also the wake-up call I needed. Sometimes you have to lose everything to remember who you really are. Thank you for watching. If you love revenge stories, please subscribe to this channel. We bring you daily revenge stories that will inspire you. Like and share this video to others. See you on the next one.